Welcome everyone. Today we have a special guide for Dota Underlords. As we know, the knights and dragons are everywhere in the patch after the patch, and we'll be looking at this particular build. We're looking into other builds as well, because this build can be contested at times as more players play the knights. So this is definitely one of the best current meta build because it is very solid. We have tested it, and it was one of the builds that took us to the Lord of SPIRE, back to it. We're getting the second account to Lord using this build and other builds as well. The core concept is that we're taking advantage of this no extra damage before round 10 and free rolls of each round after we lose. The knights can suffer quite a lot during the early games previously, similar for mages, because most of our units are not found readily. They're mostly tier 2 and tier 4, we can't find them to 2-star before round 10 usually. And with this new change, it really favors the mages and the knights. Now, what we're going to do is, we're also looking into the free roll strategy with the knights to benefit us in finding 3-stars, and being a more effective defensive alliance, the higher the base HP we are, the more effective HP it is, because the 50% damage reduction works wonderfully with a 3k knight compared to a 1.6k knight HP. Let's start with the early game. Early game now goes from round 1 to 15 with the new adjustment of how damage is dealt. The main goal for the early game is to save up. We can use a losing streak, we can use a winning streak. Ideally, it is easier to guarantee a losing streak compared to a winning streak in the new patch, because you might be winning, all of a sudden someone gets a free roll, they find a crucial 2-star, it's a 2-star Beastmaster, 2-star Sniper, all of a sudden they get a random power spike, and it is harder to keep winning. We should stay on level 4 or 5 to maximize our saving if we're planning to go to a losing streak. And this is before round 10, notice that. We should be leveling up after round 10 because the damage dealt after round 10 is massive. And of course, make use of the free rolls. The alliance we're looking for the early game are cheap and effective early game alliances which helps us save up. 3 assassins, hunters, warriors, druids, heartless, savages, trolls, and knights. The earlier ones is a transitional purpose as we pick up on knights on the bench, while the later ones allows us to go into the knights directly. So it can be hard to find knights to 2-star, and we're adopting with the earlier alliance which can be stronger. Keep in mind, we don't want to fuse units that's 2 tier or 3 tier because they will sell for less. We can still fuse units like Bounty Hunter, Tiny, Blastseeker, or other units like Enchantress can still work because they'll sell for the full price. Because we have went over with the Savage and Hunter builds, we won't be explaining those builds with the cheap effective Savages and Hunters. We'll focus on what happens when we start fully with Knights. So we're going to look into early Knight start. In terms of order of preference, we're looking for key units. Number 1 is Bat Rider in early rounds, and then followed by Chaos Knight and Luna, followed by Witch Doctor or any other valuable early game units like 2-star Tiny, Druids, etc. Then followed by Shadow Shaman. Yes, the Bat Rider is top priority in the first 2 rounds because likely you won't find Chaos Knight or Luna, but other times Bat Rider can be effectively strong with a 2-star or multiple Bat Riders on the field. That gives us a little early game edge. After round 10 or even after round 5, Bat Rider won't be that effective, so we definitely want to focus on Chaos Knight and Luna after. So after round 4, we want to use Bat Riders with as the main source of damage, which Witch Doctor for the control and the stun. And of course, the Blink Dagger on Witch Doctor is not bad. Other type of mana gain on Witch Doctor is very nice. Even after the nerf, Witch Doctor is still very relevant. Having 2+ knights and at least one of the 2-star knight is essential for the early game knight start, because only 1-star knights we won't do enough damage. A 2-star knight can do enough damage while we're defensive. A few items to highlight with the new changes. The Forefront Grace is a S tier item for knights, hunters, and warriors. Most of the damage is physical here, and -5 armor really helps because it translates into 22% physical damage amplification. And that's considerable damage, especially this goes through armor, so it's not reduced by armor. Because we're reducing the armor. Previously with the Savage, we used to get plus 20% or 10% attack damage, which is reduced by armor. So the Heartless is more favored for us. Arcane Boots is quite nice on Bat Rider, which only has 20 max mana. This means he will almost instantly activate Mana Boots, and that enables the entire team to have a quicker cast. could be a quicker Witch Doctor cast, could be a quicker Bat Rider cast if he had friends on the team. So 2 Bat Rider can really wreak havoc of the enemy with these mana boots. We call it arcane boots here. It's very strong. Another tier 2 item to look out for is Helm of Undying. This is a S- tier item for me because for any build it is useful. It scales upwards, it allows unit to keep doing damage, and once we find a 3-star Kush unit, it can be a great bait for enemies. It can enable you to cast spells or enable you to do more damage. And this item scales into the late game so nicely because if a unit survives for 4 seconds longer, you delay the engagement, you can be dying in your round a little slower. This might be the difference maker with your positioning, or you can be killing extra few unit to reduce the loss of HP. So this is a very good item. The advantage of this build is that we're saving great economy using the losing streak, and we are delaying the power spikes around round 15 because that's when our build really finds the 2-star knights, and we consolidate our foundation, and we probably stay on 60, 50 or even 40% HP. Once we find enough 2-star knights, we go for 3-star knights. Disadvantage here is not finding enough knights. It can be heavily contested if 3+ players are playing this build, and that's when we start to consider other builds. I'll recommend warriors, hunters, mages, scrappies and warlock. You don't need to play one of them by one, but you can mix them together. Say hunters and warlocks, hunters and warriors, mages and scrappies, or scrappy and warlocks. You can even go warriors and warlocks, but you don't want to mix the two that's defensive like warriors and scrappies. Let's look into the early game variations. We have quite a few to help us consider the choices and to save up enough economy to go further into the mid game. In this first variation, we'll look at only having 4 units on the board. We won't be looking at a lot of the alliance items because there's only a few, so we'll look mainly on the team compositions and the unit choices and also the positioning. Here we have the Bat Riders with the Chaos Knight. This is a basic stuff for round 4. This is okay. This gives us a small chance of winning with the Bat Riders as the source of damage. Chaos Knight can take the chainmail on any defensive items. Shadow Shaman just here. We replace him with Witch Doctor if we can, but he's just here. We ideally don't need Shadow Shaman because this is going to be a Dragons and Knight, not a Trolls and Knight. And Shadow Shaman is not effective at 2-star. Even at 3-star, he's a little underwhelming, especially with the change of the Shamans. Second variation is just with starting with 4 knights. This can be around 4, round 5 start. We can even keep those 4 knights to go further. So this is when we're running a losing streak, we're just having 4 knights. We just position them as casually as this. We're not positioning to the center because usually we're not very strong. This one focuses on Abaddon as the tank, while the entire team can focus on 1 unit that is in the corner. So we aim to kill a few units. As we go further and level up in the game, we can add 5 units. Ideally, Witch Doctor is very nice. It has a stun, it is a troll that enhances the whole team, and it can be given Blink Dagger, mana gain items, and it can build into Warlocks later as well. This is when you have multiple pairs, or if for the lucky fews, you have multiples of them to 2-star. Here the focus is on the damage and the stun potential with Chaos Knight and Witch Doctor. Of course, the Bat Rider can be exchanged if it's just a 1-star Bat Rider, and the focus is to save up. We use cheap, effective units. We only keep the core knights. We save up until round 15 and go further. For this variation, we're now level 6. This is usually happening after round 9, and during this stage, we will be looking at level 6 until round 15 most likely, unless we get super lucky with rows of units, we get enough economy to go to level 7 a little earlier. Usually we do want the 4 knights, and at least one of the knights should be 2-star. Witch Doctor is in the middle, he can be on the side. The key here is how many 2-star Bat Riders do we have, and those will be the damage dealer or the tank. We use the Bat Riders as a tank here. So we can see that 1-star Bat Rider is smaller than or weaker than Chaos Knight, weaker than Abaddon, which is equal to Oni Knight. Because those two does have 10 armor, Chaos Knight only have 5 armor. In this stage of the game, AoE damage from Abaddon and Oni Knight actually does a little more for us. And as one of the last variation for the early game, We have 6 units on the board, 4 of them or 5 of them are knights, and with the Witch Doctor. The highlight here is a 2-star Luna. I feel that a 1-star Luna without any damage item is not very strong, but a 2-star Luna can be the core of any of the knight build before round 20. Looking into the mid game, it is round 16 to round 25. We want to level up and spending correctly with the knight build. So other than the Dragon Knight, Necrophos and Disruptor, most of the units we're looking for are tier 3 units. So because of that, are tier 3 and below units. Because of that, we want to be rolling on level 7 if we want to find faster power spikes with multiple pairs of Chaos Knight, Abaddon and Oni Knight. But we still want to roll at level 8 for the highest rates of those purple units, because those with the game changers that disables or does most damage. The usual timings is round 17, level 7, round 21, level 8, then we stay on level 8 to be rolling. We can consider going up a level at level 9, round 26 or 31. We'll be prioritized on finding all the units to 2-star first, then aiming for Chaos Knight and Luna to 3-star first. If HP is too low, we'll consider leveling up for additional alliance, maybe Heartless, maybe the Trolls, maybe the Warlocks. Or we can add another 2-star unit from the bench. So this is the last step, desperation. But if we're close to 3 stars, we can go all in and rolling as well. The key units in the mid game are Dragon Knights, Necrophos and Disruptor to 2-star. Necrophos can be effective at 1-star for the Heartless and the Warlock and the healing, but ideally all 3 should be 2-star. It is hard to conform all 3, so we can be flexible. And yes, we can swap the Witch Doctor out by having the Necrophos and Disruptor, at least one of them at 2-star. Ideally, Disruptor 2-star for the front line, Necrophos can be 2-star later. We're likely to have 6 or 4 knights at this stage. Having additional Heartless and Warlock is great for us. We want to consider the Dragon Knight with Viper over the pack, because having the dragons, it's great, but pack is not very strong unless we have mages and mana game for her. Viper on the other side is quite good of a tank and it's quite effective. But there is one chance when we use the pack is when we use the pack as a bait other side. Give her a little defensive item and she can use phase shift and start baiting enemies away from the entire team of the knights. That's the chance I use pack over Viper. Let's look at the items we can find at this stage. We'll be looking for most of the 3-tier units or 3-tier items. The first one, of course, is the Desperation of the Braces. This is like an instant refresher, and it's a so highly rated item. It's S tier plus for most builds. We can place it on the AoE casters for damage like Oni Knight and Abaddon. We can place it on Disruptor, maybe even Tide Hunter later when we find him as 2-star. So it's either damage or AoE stuns or instant cast. This item will guarantee a unit at least get 1 cast off, often get 2 cast off if they're 2-star. We have the Maelstrom after. It is a great item for damage for the ranged units, and having 2 chop buff with enough attack speed, this item is acceptable, but often we want more attack speed gain than just a flat chance of proccing with the lightnings, because we do not do magical damage. Lightnings are magical, and we do most physical damage. Mechanism is actually a really good item for the knights, because the AoE healing turns our knight's tankiness into more effective HP. 200 HP will allow the enemy to go through 400 to 500 HP because we have the Knight Alliance, and also we have more healings to come. As more healings are coming with more cooldown, the mechanism really adds to the survivability. I tend to give this item to the 1-star unit or a unit that is in the center, like the Necrophos. As for Mask of Madness and Secret Relic, or items that adds damage or attack speed, it is great for the Luna, because she does not have active, she does have a passive. We can give the relic to the Dragon Knight, but not the Mask of Madness, because Dragon Knight really wants to cast, and it's a really good casting of AoE and reduction of attack damage. As for the Luna, she will be the crucial damage dealer until round 20 and plus. That's when she falls off at 2-star, but once she's 3-star, a Mask of Madness Luna at 3-star, it's insanely strong. Secret Relic and the Datalist is also a great item for Luna, also the Hyperstone. Octane Essence is great on Necro and Witch Doctor, and even Disruptor at 2-star, because those units can give a great disable, heal the team with the Warlocks, and also do multiple things with cooldown. This item was nerfed to tier 3, but it still can be very effective. And lastly, the Vanguard, of course. We want knights to survive for longer, because each of the knights dies, we have less chance of activating the Knight Alliance. So usually you see that knights don't die at all, or knights die quickly together. If that's the case, we give a crucial unit in the front line, maybe Abaddon, Chaos Knight, or Oni Knight, the Vanguard, and they survive a little longer. Note here is that we should aim for 50 or 40 gold after round 15, and we should be rolling for the 2 stars at level 7, but if most units are already 2 star, then we'll use the gold that's over 50 gold to go to level 8 before rolling for the 3 stars. This gives the highest chance of finding the crucial purple units to 2 star, the Dragon Knight, Necro, and Disruptor. Let's look at the mid-game variations for the alliance and positioning and item and units choices. In the first variation, we have 6 knights with humans, dragons, and demons. Notice that we can have the 2 Heartless with 4 Found Grace, which is one of the best items for the knights. The positioning allows Oni Knight to be the first tank, which he will be surrounded by enemies, he's likely to have the lowest HP, he's going to heal himself. If Oni Knight is in a different position, when he takes damage, it's likely he heal a weaker ally, which is out of the center of the enemy, so we want Oni Knight to be in the middle. So he heals himself, he guarantees he gets the most damage out of his heal. So he's a healer and a damage burst. Other positioning is quite standard. Viper can be here, Viper can be here. Viper is used to bait enemies away, or Viper can be used to defensively protect the backline against assassins. We can also pull the entire team to the backline, which we'll see after. On the next variation, we can see that we added the Heartless with Necrophos, and here we still have the 6 knights. The 6 knights allows us to be tanky, and the difference maker for having 6 or 4 knights is how many 2-star knights. The Luna and the Chaos Knight has to be 2-star for me to have 6 knights in this situation. Other than that, I can replace the Chaos Knight with the Witch Doctor or maybe a Disruptor. Luna can be replaced with something else, because this gives us the Warlocks, this gives us the Trolls as well. And as we said earlier, this is what happens when we actually don't have the Chaos Knight, don't have the Luna. So here we have the Trolls and the Witch and the Warlocks. We have all the alliance by the looks of it. So it is a great alliance combination in the mid game by having enough of the 2-star knights. So Abaddon, Oni Knight, or even Dragon Knight, we want those to be 2-star. And the backline really supports them with healing, additional healing, slow the enemy, and also more healing with Warlocks. So this is a very nice lineup in the mid game. Going to the late game, usually it is round 25 plus when player starts to die, and this is the stage we want to start our aggression. We will be considered going to level 8 and 9 at round 26, and we also have 2 choices. The first choice is we can roll for the 3-star knights and other units, but if our HP is lower, we should consider the second choice. So if HP is higher than 40% and we're close to at least 1 or 2 3-stars, it's better to be rolling for them, because they will be the game changer. As we level up, there's less chance and less gold to roll for them. On the second choice, we'll consider leveling up for additional alliance or AoE stuns and disables. We'll use HP as indicator for spending and leveling. HP is 40%, we can roll to 40 or 30 gold. 30%, 30, 20 gold. And similarly for 20%, we can go to 20 or 10 gold. But if we have ages here, we can stay on 10% and stay this greedy, because we still have 1 left in us. With 10%, you want to go in to 10 gold or even 0 gold, because it's likely to die in the later rounds after 25, even with 1 or 2 units surviving on the board. In the late game, it's very important to be scouting and repositioning against different counters. So we want to be vigilant. We want to be protective of the composition we have and be defensive of the enemy composition. We have a heavy reliance on the 3-star units, which is the main tank or DPS. Also, we tend to bulk up as knights. We tend to stick together. So if enemy is focused on disabling with more stuns and AoEs, or items with Cypher of Ice, which can catch Dragon Knights very nicely, or the Luna, so we want to be careful of that. We might lose our advantage massively because we get stunned together, we get hexed by the Scythe, then a massive damage is lost, and Knights don't do much other than just soak damage after that. We want to use other 2-star knights to soak units like Anti-Mage, Cypher Vice like Abaddon, and Only Knight at this stage. We want to be protective of the Disruptor, Dragon Knight, Luna, and any of the other crucial units that's going to be 3-star. We can use a dragon like Puck and Viper to bait in the opposite corner, or we can give them a Blink Dagger to go to the backline to distract the enemy. This can distract enemy spellcasters like Keeper of the Light, enemy range attack with Sniper, or maybe even Luna. Those damage sometimes is AoE. By distracting them, this can be very beneficial for us, which doesn't hit the Nightball over there, which reduces their damage output. We can split the knights into 2 as well, because this will be avoiding most of the AoEs, so we're putting 2 eggs into 2 different baskets, which we'll look at this variation very soon. The item choices for knights, we're looking at purple items here. We haven't looked at the legendary tier 5 items because they're a little too far at round 40. The pipe is a really good item on the knights. It's definitely ice tier. We want it to be on the center of the knights. This really removes all the magical damage we receive, because knights are tanky already with the 6 alliance, and having a pipe means we're pretty good against magic. The Datalist, Skadi, Moonshot is great on the damage dealers Dragon Knight and Luna. We'll prefer the Moonshot for a 3-star Luna or 2-star Dragon Knight, followed by Datalist and Skadi. But if it's a 2-star Luna, we'll prefer the Datalist. Refresher is great for any lineup, and especially when we have Disruptors, when we have AoE stunners. If we do not have the best candidate on Refresher, we can still give it to the Witch Doctor, but ideally it's better on the Disruptor. And other times we can have it on the 2-star Tide, which we can consider adding as well. Cypher Vice could be very interesting. We can use it on the front line. This is not a lifeline, so we can use it to hack the front line or to counter the blink users that comes into the backline. So we give it to a backline unit which defend against assassins, also instantly hacks a 3-star assassin that might come in, or maybe a blink dagger initiator like a Tide Hunter. In the late game, we can consider of having 2 2-star Dragon Knights or a 2-star Disruptor over the Witch Doctor. The 2-star Lich can replace the Necro if we don't need much of the healing, because we already have enough 3-stars. The healing is not that effective for the 3-star units, but it's more effective for the 2-stars because it has less HP pool. If we have any mana gain, the 2-star Lich is very good, because the slow from Lich is massive. It's great damage, but as we slow the enemy, we do more damage. Below are the variations for the late game, which most of those variations are 9 and 10 units compositions. We start with a not so traditional knight lineup. Here we have the 6 knights, we have the dragons, we also have a lich. This is 8 composition because I want to show us the 8 compositions after progressing from 7 units. So here this follows from the mid-game composition, which we can go very quickly into the 8 composition, even at level 17 and level 21. The highlight here is Lich can be replaced by a Necro, even a Draw Ranger. We can have more Heartless by turning humans into Heartless, and the mana gain and protective measures for Lich, Luna and Dragon Knight is going to be crucial here. Those 2 are defend against assassins. Now let's look at a 6 knight lineup with a Warlock composition. Here we do have the Necrophos and Witch Doctor as the Warlocks, and same as before, this composition is slightly adjusted to allow for additional unit to be added after at round 10. We can add the Disruptor, remove the Witch Doctor, or what we can do is we can add the Lich and add as a Heartless. We can consider removing the Witch Doctor as well. The 10% attack speed for the Trolls are great, but in the late game, Witch Doctor is not that game changing. His damage wise is a single target damage, so there won't be much healing from the Warlocks from the Witch Doctor. This is when we have a slightly more Warlock and when we have only 8 units on board. In this particular composition, we only have 4 knights. We don't need to go to 6 knights in the late game because we haven't found enough 2-star Luna. Here the Batrider might be a 3-star. The Witch Doctor, Necrophos are going to be the healers and the controllers, while Disruptor is in the front to be silencing and disabling the enemy. This is the part where we focus only on 4 knights and we haven't found our 2-star or even 3-star Chaos Knight and Luna. In this particular sense, having 3 Warlocks is not bad actually, because every bit of the Warlock will be healing. So Disruptor and Necro actually heals massively, while the Witch Doctor is the only stunner we have. So over here, we can look into splitting as well. We mentioned about splitting the Knights. The Knight still benefits from the 6 Knights because they just have to stand next to another Knight. This means we can share the basically, we can split the damage with Zelena and Dragon Knight. Those are going to be the crucial damage dealers. And we want to have one of each of those knights on the side, Abaddon and Holy Knight. The Warlocks can be in the middle to have the best healing and damage potential. So Necro can AoE the enemy, while Disruptor can be the first to cast. Viper is still in the corner to bait the assassins and other units away. He can be here, here, or here. The crucial part here is the enemy actually have 2 or more stuns, and if we bulk up, all the stuns will land. Over here, they might break one of the sides, the other side can do enough damage. And lastly, we can have a late game with the double 2-star Dragonet and the 2-star Lich. This particular late game allows us to be protective of the Lich, which is a 2-star. The Dragon Knights will be doing lots of AoE damage to the enemy that's trying to surround us. The Lich have a chance of casting multiple times, and we still have units that defend against assassins. Ideally, the Luna should be 3-star. If she's not 3-star, she can be used as a tank now, because her effectiveness is not as high as the Dragon Knight and as the Lich. Highlight again is to have the forefront grace, and if we do not have the forefront grace, what we can consider is positioning the humans a little differently. Have the only knight with Abaddons, so we have a human that's human silencing enemy with every particular chance of 20%. Overall, this is quite effective build for coming top 4. I have tried it several times. Our results were not always number 1 or number 2, but most of the time we do come top 4, top number 3, and with any luck, if no one's playing knights, we can still be top 2 and top 1. The biggest concern is having multiple players playing knights, which is very likely in this meta. So if that's the case, we want to have 2 choices. One is we want to transition away from knights into something else. We can consider the mages, warlocks, which were mentioned before. We can also consider the aggressive leveling knights, which I'll be attaching a replay as well. So instead of trying to roll for 3 stars, we go to level 9 for additional alliance, then level 10. Most units will be leveled to 2-star, and our goal is to be top 4 instead of trying to make to top 2. If that's the case, most other knights will die before us, and we will be the only surviving knights, but the other builds that don't need knights will definitely be stronger. So that is the difference. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more future guides like this to come with Dota Underlords. Please also follow and subscribe to support me on Twitch. Let me know what you guys think about this particular build and which build you guys want to see in the future builds to come. We'll be looking at mages, scrappies, warlocks, hunters, and more builds which will be very interested on using it as a clan build for rank up, and also a fun build, maybe the blood bond as well. So thank you so much for the support, guys. Thank you.